It was the kind of village where time seemed to sleep. Nestled in the rolling hills of Dorset, the village of Greystone had one pub, one post office, and one terrible secret. At its heart stood the Clockmaker's cottage, a modest, ivy-covered home with a leaning chimney and an attic window that hadn't been opened in years. Inside that house lived Mr. Alistair Finch, an eccentric horologist with an uncanny sense of time and a passion for restoring old clocks. He was the village oddity, always seen winding something, muttering about lost seconds and stolen hours. He was also the man no one expected to die. But on the morning of June 12th, his body was found face down on his workshop floor, surrounded by shattered gears and splintered wood. The clock he'd been working on, a rare 18th century French carriage timepiece, was missing. The cause of death, a blunt force trauma to the head. Detective Marianne Blake arrived just before the village could tear itself apart with whispers. She was methodical, quiet, and always carried a brown leather notebook. Her methods were gentle, almost invisible. But like time itself, she missed nothing. Chapter 1. The Suspects. There were 5 people who had reason to visit Mr. Finch in the days before his death. 1. Evelyn Harrow, the young schoolteacher recently arrived from London. She had brought Finch a grandfather clock belonging to her late father. The two had formed a strange friendship. 2. Reverend Thomas Bell, a nervous, aging priest, who had asked Finch to repair the chapel's antique bell tower clock. Rumors said the church's finances were in disarray, and Finch had discovered discrepancies in the payment. Five. Dorian Finch, Alistair's estranged nephew, a failed musician turned drifter. He had returned to Greystone just a week before the murder. No one knew why. Chapter 2. Clues among the silence. The workshop was like a museum of frozen moments. Cuckoo clocks, skeleton clocks, mantel clocks. All silent now. Detective Blake moved carefully, noting every detail. The missing French clock, a blood smear on the edge of the desk, and most curiously, a single cog, placed deliberately on the windowsill, a part too large to belong to the missing clock. There was also a letter in the fireplace. Half burned, it read, "To whomever finds this, if anything should happen to me, know that the clock holds more than time. It holds ... The rest was ash. Chapter 3. Motives and Masks. Evelyn Harrow claimed she was home grading papers. She wept when she heard the news. But the old postman insisted he saw her near Finch's house that night, standing in the rain. Reverend Bell was evasive, clutching a cracked pocket Bible. When asked about the missing chapel funds, he grew pale. Gerald Pike was furious about the missing clock. He claimed it had been promised to him, though there was no evidence of any deal. Nora Cresswell simply said he changed his will. I saw it with my own eyes. Said he was giving the clock to someone else. Dorian, the nephew, had no alibi. I was drinking behind the pub, he said with a shrug. Uncle Alistair never liked me much, but I didn't kill him. Chapter 4. The Clockmaker's Message. The breakthrough came not from a fingerprint, but a mechanism. Detective Blake asked a horology expert to examine a photograph of the missing French carriage clock. He said the model had a secret compartment used to hide valuables during the Napoleonic Wars. A hidden compartment. Suddenly, the half-burned letter made sense. She returned to the workshop. In a drawer, she found a sketch of the clock's internal gears and an address scribbled on the back. It belonged to Gerald Pike, but Pike didn't have the clock. He had broken in to steal it. Yes, but it was already gone. Blake called a final meeting at the cottage. Each suspect stood in the workshop where Alistair had died. She laid the final piece on the table. The missing clock recovered from the local chapel. "Reverend Bell," she said softly, "you needed money to cover your debts." Finch found out. The clock was worth more than cash. It held a documented land deed. Sold, it could save your church. The Reverend bowed his head. "You confronted him. He refused to hand it over. In the struggle, he fell. You panicked, burned the letter, hid the clock." But Bell shook his head. "I was there, yes," he whispered. "But I didn't kill him. He was alive when I left." "Was?" Blake turned. "Then it was you, Miss Cresswell. He came to clean that night. Found him injured, realized he had changed his will. You finished what Bell started." Nora gasped. "He was giving it all to Evelyn. That girl knew nothing of him. I was loyal for 30 years. Her hands trembled." Epilogue. The weight of time. Nora Cresswell was arrested for manslaughter. Reverend Bell was charged with obstruction. Evelyn Harrow inherited the cottage, and the secret document inside the clock allowed her to save the school from closing. As for Blake, she left quietly, her notebook full once more. The clocks of Greystone ticked again, but not one without the echo of what time had tried to bury. Because time, as Mr. Finch always said, keeps everything, even secrets.